to day one of the SPL play-in qualifier tournament, whatever kind of long name you want to give this event, because we are sending two teams to the SPL by the final day of this event. My name is J. Mac Tucker. I'm going to have Mifflin joining me on the desk as we get ready to go into our second set of the day. It's nobody's favorite up against reverse card. And Dave kind of alluded to it. We'll talk a little bit more as we get into here. But this nobody's favorite team specifically is kind of one that you're seeing a little bit of favorite towards.
Yeah, it might be a misnomer since I'm here, right? Nobody's favorite, again, for the fans at home who aren't familiar with this team, is Malachi, Schlemmy, Leon, Dashboard, and In My Zen, with ranked all-star Sada Dragon acting as their coach. And this is a squad that I think has got a lot of potential. Specifically, Leon has been around the scene for an incredibly long time. I mean, I've been competing against Leon back in my day. He's still going. It's blowing my mind. He is a very mechanically talented player, but I think the main standout about him is his ability to be a shot caller.
And they're going to be going up against reverse card. It's our second set of 4 for the day. We'll have 4 tomorrow. The winner of this match is going to go up against one of the SCC champions of last season around Winter Dogs, who had a nice little running during their time in the Worlds qualifiers last December. Will be the match that they go to. And we're going to take a nice, long, and hefty look at this bracket here. And what a bracket we've got. What an entire week. It's 5 days of non-stop action. 4 sets a day for the first 3. And then we get a couple of best-of-5s at the very end of the week on Saturday and Sunday. Those will be our qualifier matches to see who ends up going to the SPL. Because remember, we are sending 2 from this tournament there. And kind of talking about these two teams, you're talking about the veteranship that Leon has with here. He's bringing kind of a lot of competitive rookies, to say the least. But we can't say that these players are rookies by any stretch of the imagination. He talked about a lot of the high-level players on his team and him kind of bring them around here for their chance to go for the SPL.
Yeah, so the squad built around Leon has got a lot of talent. I mean, you've got In My Zen, who used to play on console at a very high level, also a Grandmaster on PC for as long as Grandmaster has been allowed to exist. Schlemmy has been one of the standouts for me. I mean, I don't know how Leon finds these guys, but just randomly one day this guy shows up in literally every single stream. I mean, you tune into a Nika stream or a Zatman stream, and this guy is dominating the queues. Very impressed with what I've seen from him out of the jungle. Dashboard as well, another streamer that has been very successful in the ranked scene. But we got to talk about who I consider to be the titular member of this squad, Leon. We've talked about his mechanical prowess, incredibly talented in that regard. But more so, and it's something I alluded to a little bit earlier, is the leadership that this guy brings. There are plenty of memes around him about how he likes to communicate in comms, very loud, likes to be repetitive, but you cannot ever say that if Leon wants his team to know something, that they don't. If it's get on Ra, it's look at Ra, look at Ra, look at Ra, look at Ra. If it's chase Geb, my man's screaming Geb on repeat as well. And it has led his teams to wild success in the past. You can see Leon's hands on every single team he's been on, because I think he's been a dedicated shot caller for as long as he's been playing competitive.
And we do actually have Leon, who's going to be standing by for a pre-game interview. We're going to kind of talk to him and kind of pick into his mind a little bit here. Leon, first off, thanks for coming. Glad to have you in the studio playing out here. You've got a team of rookies kind of around you here. They haven't really had much LAN experience, if any at all. How do you think that kind of affects the team coming in here for your first LAN event?
Yeah, I'm definitely having a lot of rookies. Obviously, everyone actually here is a rookie coming to LAN. So I think it's, this first game is really important because it, pushes them over the top to be confident to get this, 2-0, for them to be confident going into the next game, which we're going to need because there's a lot of tough competition in this play-in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you get a win here. You get to go up against the Winter Dogs, who was an SCC powerhouse last time around. We got to kind of get a nice little first look at the new meta of Season 9 in that first set. A lot of crazy things that have kind of come out here. Does that kind of line up with some of the expectations that you and maybe in your team has had coming into this LAN?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I call it OB because the pronunciation on that, I mean, I'm Latino, so I make pronunciations for everything. But yeah, the meta has definitely shifted towards, playing a little bit more aggressive. I think that's what, hi-rez wanted, because the games at Worlds were a bit slower, a little bit more methodical with macro. And I think the pace is really important now, making sure you get the first couple OBs and making sure that you, set up early and defend from the supports trying to steal it nowadays.
Yeah. Well, you got a big set ahead of you. I'll let you get back with your team. Thanks so much for spending time and talking to us in our pregame interview.
Appreciate it. Pleasure to be here.
Good luck. Talking about the OBs, and we got to see a lot of that in set number 1, where there was a lot of OB, talking about the Obelisk specifically, where these teams were running up there. The support specifically were kind of W-keying to that objective and making sure that they could do anything possible to try and steal those flowers. I mean, yes, you got to sacrifice some health, but who cares? But more than anything, Mifflin, I really love the confidence out of Elion. Yes, this is a team of rookies. We don't have LAN experience, but this first game is the most important one for them to kind of establish that early presence.
Yeah, he didn't say early presence. He said to establish a 2-0. He is considering his opposition on reverse card as a stepping stone for the rest of this tournament. That is the competitive prowess, the veteranship that he's bringing. He does not care about a first-round game, especially in a double elimination bracket. My man has got his eyes on the prize. But standing between him and a victory is reverse card. And for those of you unfamiliar, that's Slash, Valo, Vi, Monster Bomber, and O Conviction heading up this squad with just Todd as the coach. His name is just Todd. This is a team that has got...
What do you call out Todd like that for?
Well, I mean, it's just Todd, you know? like
Man's name's Todd. Put some respect on the name Todd.
You think, is that like his gamer tag? Is that his actual name? I'm not sure. It says
both.
Todd. That's what it says on my notes. I'm going to go into the evaluation now. This is a team that has got a lot of untested talent on it. We've seen a couple of these guys throughout the years. O Conviction and Monster Bomber specifically are the standout names for me. I've seen them competing for a very long time, a lot of individual talent. But we have not seen this squad very often together or even kind of operating on this high of a level. So I think this is going to be a phenomenal heat check to see whether or not they are SPL ready, whether or not these guys are going to be contenders for one of the 2 spots up for grabs this weekend. I've got some expectations for them, but they've got stiff competition ahead.
Yeah, and maybe if you don't recognize the name Vi, their mid laner, who did formerly go known as Globe over in that mid lane, but a lot of talent to be seen here. I mean, this is the 10th seed team coming into this event, so they've got some of the higher expectations to really kind of step up here and go up against the powerhouse team like nobody's favorite over there up against Elion. So they've got a lot to look up towards. But seeing Conviction back here, I mean, he's been playing competitive Smite for a long time. I believe he started out a few years back going through here and is finally getting another run out here into the competitive scene to try and vie for their spot here in the SPL. And it's going to be a big matchup here because this is one of the harder teams that they're going to have to face off, at least in the early stages of the bracket, Mifflin.
Yeah, I think so, man. Again, nobody's favorite is just a misnomer. I mean, this is a squad of stacked veteran talent, but I do not count reverse card out. Specifically, I think this is a team that's going to operate a lot through Monster Bomber. I feel like the shot calling around him is going to be very strong, but it is worth noting again that there was some kind of a little bit of roster drama coming into this weekend with this team.
Yeah, and speaking of Monster Bomber, we do have him standing by. We can talk to him just a little bit about it for our pregame interview. Thanks for stopping by here. Now, I won't have you go into any details. I mean, we got to see anything that kind of came through on Twitter, but we know that you do have some roster changes that came into this event last minute. How do you think that kind of affects maybe your standings coming throughout here?
It affected a little bit because of the fact like they were more well known, of course. So, but I don't think it's gonna affect that much. Like with our standings, we're still very confident like going into these play-ins.
Typically, when it comes to events like this, when you're seated a little bit lower, people maybe sometimes kind of count you out here. Does that maybe kind of help relieve some of that pressure? Teams maybe don't think that, oh, we don't have much to worry about. But does that kind of make you maybe sometimes feel like a dark horse in these kind of events?
Not really. We come in here, we prove people wrong at best.
In that support role specifically, we talked to Elion. He talked about how important the obelisk is in this season. Kind of as a as a support player, talk about how important really that obelisk is towards your early game. How does that really affect like those first 10 minutes of play?
Honestly, inting for obelisk is always worth. It's just a mini Gold Fury. As bad as that sounds, it's the truth. It just provides so much gold on the map and so much XP where it's just needed. Like even my teammates just tell me, just go for obelisk, just go die. As long as we get it, it's worth.
Yeah, no matter what, the support's always got to throw their lives out for something. Well, thank you so much for spending time talking to me. I'll let you get back to your team, and good luck in your set.
Thank you.
So it does seem that obelisk is becoming the new thing for everybody to really go for, and once again, the supports have to give up their life to go for something that the team wants. But it is a very important objective, and it's something that we got to see a lot during our set. I imagine we'll see a lot of objective control towards that obelisk here in set number 2. But I'm also real curious, Mifflin, how the picks and bans are going to change up here from set 1 to set 2, if we'll see maybe a lot of the same similarities.
Yeah, I'm not sure, right? Because a lot of these teams are establishing their own individual kind of identities. There's some picks that I wasn't expecting to see a whole lot of that got banned out in the last set. Like Athena, in particular, from Privative, was not something I was expecting to see, and certainly not something I was expecting to see perform at the level that we just saw. So I think that there's a lot of room here to experiment with the meta. We haven't got that SPL backing just yet, so we don't have the endorsement of what the true meta really is, which means that I get to break out a term that I haven't said for an entire calendar year. we're in something called the emergent meta. Everybody's trying to figure out exactly what's strong, what's going to work in a competitive level, what's going to kind of mesh well with the synergies on these teams. So we could see some more of the same, but I would not be surprised if this is a wildly different set.
And I think emergent meta might be the best way to describe it, because typically when we go from, phase 1 to phase 2, we kind of have that mid-season through, but there's never really a gap in playtime. You get maybe a week, 2 at most, where you don't really see what's going on, but it largely still stays the same. You see a lot of those same picks. It's when you transition from Season 8 now into Season 9, or, previous season to new one, we get this 2-month gap almost before we ever really see any competitive games go through. And we've already seen the one full patch with 9.1 go through. We've seen the 9.1 bonus patch come through. A lot of things have changed from Worlds up until this point. And I think one of the more interesting picks, we kind of talked about it yesterday, when we were kind of meeting up and kind of talking about the weekend as a whole. I'm actually really surprised we didn't see any priority towards Atlas in that first set.
Yeah, me too, man. That god has gotten buff after buff after buff, having an admittedly weaker release has gotten a lot stronger over time. The damage output, the control, the CC, the damage shred, or defense shred rather, that his ultimate affords you, all incredibly strong. If somebody's straggling away from a team fight, that ultimate is also a global, by the way. So I think we will be seeing Atlas at some point this weekend. I really do. I'm going to give it the full Mifflin backing. I think that god is incredibly strong.
Yeah, I mean, between the games that I've played, the games that I've seen him played, time and time again, from 9.1's release up until this bonus, he has been incredibly strong. And maybe we'll get to see him here in set number 2, or at least, hopefully at least one time this weekend we'll get to see him and finally see some light shown towards this god. As you said, he was a little bit slow on the upcoming whenever he got his first release in 8.12. But now that he's been such a powerhouse over in the dual lane, we've been seeing how much priority has been put on the dual lane. So much as seeing level 2, 3 ganks from the jungler going over there trying to establish some very early presence.
Yeah, and that speaks to kind of how the jungle has changed here in Season 9. There's been a distinct shift up in how you are approaching the laning phase. Back in Season 8, it was, all right, we're just going to keep farming, we're kind of waiting for level 5. But now with the pathing as it is, junglers have the opportunity to essentially, air quotes, cringe gank either mid or duo. They've got that opportunity every single game. It's just where you want to establish your pressure early on. You're almost always going to have the ability to show up at level 2 when somebody is level 1, which is very interesting. We saw some of that shift up in the last set where one jungler would go towards the duo, establish early pressure there, and they would be able to leverage it for purple or red buff invades, or somebody rotates towards mid, and that gives them control around these mid harpies, which kind of shifts up the macro farm game as well. It's a game of chess right now between these junglers as everybody's trying to establish, all right, what's actually the most efficient start?
We've seen a lot of change-ups in relics, too. I mean, we went from being in a quadruple meditation meta for a while, whereas both solo, both support, we're picking up med every single time. Now we're not seeing, I don't think we've seen any med just yet, especially after the changes that have come to med with this bonus patch, a little bit of nerf and the extra healing that it gives. But instead, you're right to talk about how Shell has become such a prominent first item for these supports. We've seen it come in clutch a couple of times in these early engagements.
Yeah, especially considering now that one of the upgrade paths for Shell is also Phantom, right? When you used to pick up Phantom, it was, all right, it gives you some damage mitigation, but you're walking through walls. That's the only reason you're picking up. Now it's, hey, you got that health shield, you've got your damage mitigation, and also you're walking through walls, which is just an incredibly strong stat stick. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that version of Shell picked up, even when there aren't too many active walls on the map.
Yeah, we've also been seeing a couple of the new Tier 4 items that have come through, the glyphs, as they're so formally known as. We do have, we got to see the Breastplated Determination come through for the Soul Laner. We got to see Envenom Deathbringer come out in that very last game. We haven't seen any of the Ratatouille upgrades just yet. Haven't gotten a chance to see that Calamitous Rod or the Nimble Ratatouille picked up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, man. That's an item that's going to come very late into your builds, especially with the flat penetration start that we're seeing from a lot of these mages. The 10% pen that you get from Ratatouille is nice, but percent pen, something you want to kind of backload on your build. And then afterwards, well, you got some pretty great upgrade options, especially Calamitous Rod. The amount of damage output that brings in AoE format to these late-game team fights is deceptive. I mean, it's very easy to just kind of play around and you're not really paying attention to this passive meteor that's dropping on your head, but it does enough that you really need to put a lot of respect towards it. I think if we were to see a Ratatouille picked up early, that is a little bit more so kind of favoring the Nimble Rod style. A Magical Hunter in either mid or the long lane can utilize that item very well.
Yeah, that's one thing when that Nimble Ratatouille kind of came out, that glyph was kind of crazy when we looked at it on paper and we're like, man, Magical Hunters are
They're, like, good.
they're already really good, and then they get this side. I'm sure. I think it was like Telkines. They got like a 10 power nerf on it, but then you turn around and see Nimble Ratatouille. You get 2% attack speed for every 40 magical power you have. It's like, okay, who cares about 10 power? Let's just get a lot of attack speed, and let's get a lot of picks and bans going here. Game number 1 between our second matchup of the day, Reverse Card and nobody's favorites here in game number 1. And our first ban is going to be the RDO. We saw her 3 games in a row last time around in the first set. Now we're going to get to see her all here in game number 1 of this set.
Yeah, Yark the Shark put some fear into the entirety of the SEC. It would seem that RDO pick has been getting a lot of respect, and rightfully so. With the breastplate changes, she's already utilizing CDR a lot better than these gods that don't have 6 abilities, right, as well as just the upgrades, making her an incredibly tanky force to be reckoned with. Means that her power trajectory is very early game slanted. I think you're 2 items in on RDO, and all of a sudden, you've already become that raid boss. So it makes sense to me that Reverse Card, a team that I do not expect to play overly so through the solo lane, just decided to get rid of it.
And another pick that made it through 3 games in the last set, but will not make it in at all this time around. Reverse Card ban away Cirquette alongside Bastet, who got one little kind of target ban in that first game, and then didn't really see anything at all remaining in that set. But I think the most interesting one out of all of it is this Persephone, because it's a god who saw basically no competitive play towards the latter half of Season 8 after her changes to her kit. I think it was only like Hurrywind who was really playing that god. And then now we've seen not just a ban, not just, well, now 2 bans technically, but we also saw a game of play and some pretty solid success out of that mage.
Yeah, I got baited on Twitter, man. Like, every SPL mid laner is like, yo, Persephone's not good. Like, I was literally surfing Twitter last night. I probably saw like 4 tweets about exactly that. And now we're seeing ban priority. It performs well when it's getting picked. So maybe it's an SEC special. Maybe it's an SPL play-in special, rather. But I've been impressed by this god. A god I haven't been impressed by, except for when it's piloted by El Leon, is Yanis, or, you know, Hurrywind as well. That's a god that is largely inconsistent. I don't think it utilizes the new style of build incredibly well. You want that double flat penetration early on, which is going to make you incredibly strong in the fight. Yanis, more so just about kind of operating as an assassin on the sidelines. So I'm curious to see if it's going to get picked, not just in general, but like this early on as well. Very surprising.
It will not be picked up just yet. Instead, swapped over to a Sobek. But Elion did recently put up a little video on his Twitter. He got his first pentakill of Season 9 with Giannis. And,
yeah, that makes sense.
And to quote him, it's not a new season if I don't get a pentakill on Giannis. So would not be surprised if we did see that one sneak its way through at some point in this set. But first picks are going to be Fenrir for Reverse Card, Sobek that got swapped away from the Giannis, and then a god who was banned away all last set, Kleena, who was largely absent during Worlds. We didn't get to see her at all in the first set. Now we finally see her as a second pick. How do you feel about Kleena here?
I mean, Kleena is just an incredibly strong pick. She brings a lot of damage. That's what she does. She's going to apply that damage regardless. I don't think that Kleena is a god that you really have to like say to yourself, okay, well, I've got a good counter matchup here, or, oh, this god's really going to slow me down. Kleena is just kind of plug and play, going to fit into most drafts and perform relatively well against the majority of drafts as well. But the main thing about this god that I think a lot of people are sleeping on is her ability to shred objectives. Gold Furies, Pyromancers all fall down expeditiously when Kleena is lined up in front of them. And now with the AoE damage output that Hou-Yi is bringing, it's going to really make it easy for nobody's favorite to go towards these early Gold Furies.
I mean, she really does feel like, you know, an assassin Anubis when it comes to double dropping
Agreed.
that ultimate. She can shred Pyros, Fires, Gold Furies, Gods, whatever happens to be stuck in the way of there. Hou-Yi going to be picked up once again. We're seeing a lot of priority towards this god. End of Season 8, we saw a lot of Hou-Yi play, not a whole lot of Hou-Yi success. It's been the reverse here as far as this weekend has been concerned so far. We've seen some good plays out of Hou-Yi, some good games. And then it's going to be Izanami and Agni, interestingly banned away. This seems to be a god, after his buff, a lot of people thought, man, Agni's probably going to jump in. The extra damage to his stun, his ultimate procs with that, you know, that Gem of Focus. But he was largely absent, now receiving a ban here in the second phase.
Agni is nasty right now. I was surprised that it's taken this long for him to get like a nod, right? The damage output that he brings is incredibly strong. He's really going to favor that double early penetration build because of the amount of poke that he's able to apply. He's generally pretty safe as well. I think Agni is a god that is going to stick around for a good bit of time, and he also synergizes pretty well with some of the new glyphs available. Calamitous Rod, something that I think he synergizes very well with. Taking a peek now at Reverse Card's kind of draft, the top 3, it is dive, dive, and dive, right? They are trying to close gap onto the back line, but looking at nobody's favorites composition, who are they diving? Kleena can get into a wall. Hou-Yi, maybe a pretty decent target to lock down, but he's able to drop a large AoE damage ability at his feet, jump over walls as well. He's relatively slippery as far as hunters are concerned. And then if this Yanis gets locked in, good luck closing the gap on this guy. I mean, he's going to walk through multiple walls consistently. So reverse card, although having superior dive potential, have not got great targets for it. And you know what? It might not be a Yanis, but you're not diving a Nike.
Look, man, we keep getting baited by this Giannis hover. Every single time he's done it now, it's been swapped over for a tank in its place. So Sobek and Nike, the front line here for nobody's favorites. Kleina towards the jungle, and Hoyu over in the dual lane. So now we are just waiting, this time on Elion's pick for nobody's favorite. But it's a quick response out of Soul, and then a Kali hover, a god that we've seen a lot of. We've seen a lot of kind of differences in builds. One of the more popular ones kind of going into that Crusher route, whatnot. But I don't know why I even thought about the Kali for a moment, unless it was going over into the ADC role for some reason, because they already did have Fenrir, Gilgamesh, and Osiris. Instead, it'll be swapped over to Tiamat, who's a mage that has stood the test of time through nerf after nerf, even through no matter how many changes we've seen in the meta. This god still seems to push her way back up into favorites.
Man, I really like how Reverse Card has shored up their draft these last two picks. You've got a ticking time bomb, Soul's scaling, going to be incredibly strong. We're going to get our first look at some magical hunters here in Season 9 as well, so we get to get an idea of when these guys are starting to itemize towards the Nimble Rod. Tiamat scaling, incredibly strong, should be able to operate relatively well for self-peel, which was going to be my main concern for the selections from Reverse Card, is how well are they going to be able to deal with this Kleina? How well are they going to be able to survive some of these fights? Tiamat can drop the stun or drop a slow and make it a little bit harder for some of these close target gods to lock her down, as we do see another Yanis hover. I'm not going to talk about it until he gets actually locked in. And that was something he hovered a little bit earlier, Poseidon actually, the lock-in for nobody's favorite, and this gives a target to Reverse Card. Now Fenrir should be able to find somebody a little bit easier. Gilgamesh, Osiris, both going to have a much easier time closing gap on a Poseidon. I didn't think I was going to be endorsing a Yanis pick today, but looking at the draft that Reverse Card has brought, I think maybe Yanis would have played a little bit better into it.
I mean, this puts a massive target on their back. Poseidon, a fairly immobile god, only gets that movement speed.
He's
through
fast,
the
at
passive.
least.
I mean, he can get zooming at some points, but it does take him a little while there. The Kraken, probably the most notorious thing in all of competitive history, whether those become very impactful or if those, you know, kind of whiff to high heaven. We'll see which one of those Poseidons that we kind of get out here, out of nobody's favorite, out of Elion in that mid lane. But looking at the 5 of Reverse Card, you're really liking kind of how everything is kind of closed up here for this composition. Now with this Poseidon locked in, how do you kind of feel about this nobody's favorite draft?
I feel like nobody's favorite has the ability to keep doing what we were talking about earlier, the ability to kind of control objectives still. Going to favor them very heavily. Poseidon's burn potential is incredibly high, as well as he's got one of the best conformations on the map with Kraken. So I'm expecting nobody's favorite to kind of stick to their guns and play around objectives throughout the early. Whereas Reverse Card, I'm expecting a hit-the-ground-running style of play. Like, I want to see them get aggressive all the way across the map. This Fenrir is someone you want to keep your eyes on for the first 10 minutes, because now that he's got some clear, definitive targets that he can go towards, it really is going to be on him to find that impact, to create space and create time for his late-game hyper carries to get to that point. Soul, sure, incredibly strong in the early because of how Gilded Arrow operates and how Magical Hunter's scaling works, but make no qualms, it is still a very late-game focused god, as is Tiamat. So given some space, this could very quickly become, or shift rather, from a dive composition from Reverse Card into a king protection composition around this Soul and Tiamat.
So assuming Fenrir goes into the mid lane here, that leaves the kind of coin toss between Osiris and Gilgamesh. Now, I won't ask you which one I think you want to go into the Soul lane, because I remember you told me a while back, if it's Gilgamesh and solo, it's not the answer that I'm looking for. So most likely imagining this Gilgamesh running up into the jungle up against Kleina. Has that kind of early 2v2 towards mid lane kind of go there, you know, between Reverse Card and nobody's favorite? Which of that 2v2 do you favor?
At level 2, Gilgamesh should have the advantage, right? If you're able to kind of play around the enemy's wave, you can utilize Dropkick to stop the channeled ability from Kleina. Easier said than done, but certainly something I expect these guys are very capable of performing on. And then from there, you've got decent damage output. I think it's around level 6, level 7, where the damage disparity is going to start to grow and start favoring Kleina. Once she gets that first item finished up, that second item, that's really where Gilgamesh is going to have to kind of shift his attention away from being that 1v1 pick style god and instead play it a little bit more so how we saw Panatom address this pick throughout Worlds. Become that facilitator, look for these HP stacking items, stick around your teammates, give them these auras. That's really the strength of Gilgamesh. But in the early, Mans can still be a bully.
Yeah, I mean, Witchblade, Shogun's Kasari, those were such potent items on this Gilgamesh when we did see it during Worlds. Kleena, because she was so absent during Worlds, we don't have a whole lot of data on this god. We've got mixed success between whether she was in jungle. We did see her go into solo lane a couple of times and get some strong performance. I believe Ducky was one of the proponents of throwing that god over there because she just got some nice and decent clear. We'll see how it works out for these two teams here. Reverse card and nobody's favorites squaring off here in game number 1.
Highly touted teams, both gunning for a spot in the SPL here in Season 9. Reverse card versus nobody's favorite. And it's Dolson and Goremizer bringing you all the action. Gore, this one I'm very excited for, not only because of some of the talk that's been going on the desk, specifically around this nobody's favorite team, but some of the picks now that we get to see that we haven't been able to see so far this weekend. And I want to start right here in the mid lane. Tiamat versus Poseidon. As I'll hold on, we might not be allowed to start over in the mid lane. Malachi Gang jumps on out. But Tiamat versus Poseidon, not a mid lane matchup I thought we'd be talking about here today.
No, not a matchup I thought we'd be talking about anytime soon. Poseidon has not been at the forefront of people's minds. I think when you look at the Tiamat, what she provides, what she was able to do, and what she can still do are still going to be great, right? Itemization right now I actually think helps some of the mages like Poseidon, but Tiamat's good. We saw that Tiamat was good. We've watched Tiamat be very good throughout most of last year.
Yep.
And so I'm not looking at Vi right now. You've got a very good constant for reverse guard in that. It is what Leon can do on this Poseidon that is going to make the big difference for nobody's favorite, because we've seen some Whirlpool, Kraken, what have you from Poseidon, the rotations he can do, be the end-all, be-all, and form the entire great scheme of game, and we've seen some Krakens cost people World Championships. So realistically, you've got to ride that, not even that middle line, you got to ride to one side of the line and really hope that you're making the impact here.
Well, Mifflin was very excited, is very excited, as Elion forced to use his beads back away from the jungle gank of Valo over in the mid lane. And I want to continue the conversation with jungles, is that Schlemmy was, I think, Miff's sort of secret MVP maybe on this team. And Schlemmy gets a pick in Kleena that has been very, very contested in the ban column all day today, and so I think high expectations here in game 1.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this player and pick is going to be able to accomplish. I think we got to see her a little bit during those qualifications, and you can see so much of what she's capable of. Being able to go into the wall was always really interesting, not just for getaways, but also for engagements. There were a lot of capable ganks for that. But the problem is especially when I look at this team, who do you gank? I mean, Soul, they're going to be able to get out of it pretty easily. She might be the most susceptible to it. Osiris would have to use his ult to be able to get away, so he might be pretty easy. Tiamat has some pretty good self-peel, though, so mid lane's going to be a little more awkward, I think, to get things rolling. And realistically, I don't know that nobody's favorite wants to fight early on. You heard Mifflin say it on the desk, but Valo here, as a Gilgamesh, is already going to be controlling things pretty well. That drop kick does so much early on, along with the Winds of Shemesh that they'll get pretty soon at level 5. I like the pace that they're taking this if you're nobody's favorite, because early on, you do not, and that's early on, not early on. You really do want to make sure that you're just kind of grinding up those levels, getting the experience so that you can actually fight at level.
We've given a lot of love to nobody's favorite. I think Reverse Card has a chance here in the duo lane, as we already see good damage rolling into the nobody's favorite duo lane. But some aggression from the red side. Why is that? Schlemmy and Leon have both made their way to the left, and that means Conviction and Monster Bomber will take their way back to the Tier 1 tower. But I think for Reverse Card, this duo lane is maybe a spot, Gore, where some early pressure can get applied. You know, obviously you want some time for Soul to wind up. Maybe difficult to say up against a Sobek and a Ho Yi. But a Blink Fenrir is always going to provide you at least a little bit of pressure here over in the duo lane.
It's unfortunate for Monster Bomber that he has to use his Blink defensively there. I mean, good for him that he's able to stay alive. But ultimately, being able to use that Blink, or at least burn that Blink, good for nobody's favorite, keeps them safe, makes them a little less worried about his next, minute and a half now that he's going to be able to engage. And it helps slow it down. Monster Bomber and Conviction, in my mind, are the, not necessarily win conditions for Reverse Card, but they are going to be the problems, I think, that nobody's favorite have to face, because they create a lot of pressure from the duo lane, especially having a Fenrir here. But as players, they've got a lot of experience And so it'll be interesting to see if they're going to be able to trip up nobody's favorite. They've already got the 2v1 over here since we've got Dashboard going over towards mid. And I think this Fenrir has actually been surprisingly quiet. Now that he has the Ragnarok online, I want to see him get involved.
That's right, Monster Bomber, especially the minute on that blink. If you're able to use the blink and then the jump in, you're saving yourself a lot of engage and disengage. And so, you know, with the sets or with the games rather, Gore, we've already seen early today, you talk about like NA, SCC pace of play.
Yeah.
In our first matchup, Thunderhead versus Samsara, felt like all 3 of those games were just smacks one way or the other. I think, you talk about nobody's favorite in the way that they like to play. It does feel like right now, kind of building that good base layer is what their focus is on. I think at any given moment here, we could just see all chaos break out.
Yes.
And then suddenly we are just on a breakneck pace for 15 more minutes. And then suddenly the game ends.
Someone's going to engage, and then 6 things are going to happen at once, and then the fight, there's just going to be scraps left over. Maybe nobody dies, maybe everybody dies.
Right.
Something is going to happen. And I'm looking at Dashboard, and I'm looking at Monster Bomber, because Monster Bomber...
There you go. There's the engage, there's the pluck, there's a Kraken. I don't think Monster Bomber took as much damage as nobody's favorite thought that the Fenrir was going to. It only takes half HP down, and that's Kraken, a relatively important ultimate. That goes down.
And that's the big deal, right? Dashboard gets a really good pluck, trades out the ult though. Monster Bomber, hey, your blink's available while Ragnarok's down. So you're trading these things out. It actually ends up working out well for them, and I think keeping, again, the grand scheme of the game a little bit more in their favor, slowing down what this Fenrir support's going to be able to do. But he still has good potence. I mean, you can see where he is on the map right now. A simple gank is sometimes all it takes. He has a good stun on his 1. Things like that are really going to be eye-opening, I think, for nobody's favorite as to what he can provide. But you get to see the other end of that conversation, which is that, yes, you know, Kraken didn't necessarily get what they wanted. I think maybe more damage from nobody's favorite is what they had in mind. But they burned so much in the process on the side of Reverse Guard that you can eat that cooldown. You're not really stressing out about it too much.
Gore, I think as a good pluck finds its way onto Conviction, and there's a lot of lockdown. And Disapparate won't find its way in, and it is nobody's favorite on the left side, the area we said maybe there's a chance for a reverse card to get some pressure with Monster Bomber. An early death for a reverse card and an early kill on over to In My Zen, the ADC.
I love where Dashboard's mind was at as well, because immediately just cracks his knuckles after that kill happens. He zones out Monster Bomber and then turns to the jungle. He's like, I see this purple buff is coming up off cooldown. Let's go and try to strip it away.
Schlemmy will not survive, and that is a solo kill in the jungle for Valo and reverse card. And that's just pressure over on the blue buff. Looks like Malachi at least was able to pick up the enhanced blue buff that Slash was putting a little bit of pressure on. That's an important bounce back now. That gives Valo that 1 level lead, an extra kill in the back pocket, and so on one side of the map, nobody's favorites getting themselves a little bit of pressure, a small lead. On the other side of the map and in the jungle, maybe one of the most important spots, reverse card building up some presence.
Yeah, that might be the most important part. Looking at this Kleena, we've already had a little bit of question marks. She's been banned out, but she was void there for Worlds. Nobody played her. So what is she going to be able to provide? So far, we haven't seen as much from what Schlimmy's been able to do, and that's not exactly the way that you want to be remembered as of right now, as getting soloed off in there. But it is, I still think, one of those moments. I expect to see more of Kleena as we continue throughout this game than right now, where Gilgamesh is very strong, Fenrir is very strong. And guess what? That Osiris, very strong.
Right, a difficult spot for nobody's favorite, depending on what side of the map they want to fight on. Now, if Schlemmy goes like 0-5 this game, it's explicitly Mifflin's fault because Miff has been talking up this player. But this is a chance now for Schlemmy to prove Mifflin right as he rotates into the Cold Fury fight here. Valo uses a little bit of everything to get on out. Kraken finds some damage, and it's enough for Elion to grab his first kill of the set, but bye, right back in. And the Tiamat has found another, so reverse card able to trade out 1 for 1.
And that is, I mean, it's so difficult. Getting the kill on the jungle versus the mid laner, which one's going to be more worthwhile? Well, that 2-level experience lead that Valo has makes him a little more worthwhile, right? That gives Schlemmy plenty of opportunity to farm up, try to catch up, plus gets a good assist on that kill and opens up this conversation to play to get some experience under their belt. Maybe a little bit more. Look over here in the duo lane, or at least to the purple buff.
Looks like is a ward for reverse card. Back at the last little intersection of this jungle. So the rotation of Dashboard and Schlemmy will not catch the reverse card duo lane off guard. And I think we saw, Gore, in that fight, something that we're going to see as this game goes on. And it's Leon on this Poseidon getting his damage off and then dying, right? It feels like you obviously want to live these fights, but hitting a Kraken, getting the Whirlpool out, getting your one out, just everything you can, front load it into these fights. And then if you die, you've at least done what you've aimed to do. And so that was, I think, a pretty good example of maybe what could happen, especially with a lot of the dive that reverse card had.
You know, I'll bring back the conversation not only about Leon, but also adding Schlimmy into the mix, because Leon, we've seen him for a long time playing mid, doing pretty successful, but a lot of people would recognize him as a very, very adept jungler. And so that's one of the conversations that comes with this team, you know, knowing that you have someone in your mid lane that is a very good jungler. It makes me even more interested in what Schlimmy has to offer. But it also showcases, I think, where their synergy should come from. They understand each other. At least Leon will understand everything that Schlimmy's looking for here. And that's going to make it a lot easier to find those combos, find the combinations that they need to make sure they can lock things down. Unfortunately, there's always that downside of who's going to be doing the most damage right now, right? You've got 3 gods on the side of reverse card that pretty much from level 2 to level 20 feel really, really good, but really early on they're able to get their hands on the steering wheel and control how they want things to go. It takes a little longer for most of Nobody's Favorite to get to that point. And then Let's Dashboard right now is hitting a really, really insane pluck, which you've seen a few times. It's going to be this pace for them.
Nobody's Favorite, Gore, been able to answer back a lot of these kills. Maybe reverse card the one starting off some of the fights, but Nobody's Favorite answering back well. We're tied up in kills, effectively tied up in gold, but that's going to tilt back towards Nobody's Favorite. It's a Kraken, gobbles up Valo, and another good skill shot from Elion. Should be a second, and it is the first for Schlemmy and Nobody's Favorite's jungler in the mid.
That's just good, clean kills. They isolate one, they kill one, and then unfortunately for Vi, you're just in the wrong place afterward, and that opens up a bigger conversation. You finally get an objective, and they try to go for the steal.
Pyromancer all but secured, and reverse card will take it away. It just stayed alive way too long, but will Nobody's Favorite pay for it in blood? Monster Bomber the first to go down. Dashboard, a sliver of HP becomes 0. And at least Nobody's Favorite able to pull back a kill. They let that Pyromancer slip through their fingers.
This is where the grand scales of fate really start to teeter back and forth, right?
Yeah.
If you're Nobody's Favorite, you just got a lot of kills and you got them onto important targets. If you look at what reverse card get in terms of kills, it was Dashboard, which admittedly that's who you want to die if anyone's going to die on Nobody's Favorite. But that steal, which I kind of didn't feel almost like a steal, it almost felt like Nobody's Favorite wanted to leave, and then reverse card are like, well, I mean, it's only got like 1/10 HP. Might as well see what we can do. And that really helps keep things even for them. Otherwise, this would have been a much more massive swing for Nobody's Favorite. Getting that Pyromancer helps keep this within like 200, 300 gold of each other. In fact, I think they're technically slightly ahead. They're going to be able to find more.
Luck onto Valo, and then a tail whip out from Dashboard. This engages pressure from reverse card all but failed, as the entirety of the left side of the map will rotate in to Nobody's Favorite jungle. Dashboard under the water, and out he pops. So it's an ultimate burnt from the Nobody's Favorite support. Looks like they're happy to back on away. But the pacing of a game like this, Gore, this is what we've seen all day in the first 3 matches of the day. It was like first 10 to 15 minutes is that even game window. And then there's that snowball out of control. So you start to look at some of the builds. Who's better positioned to maybe take the lead in this game over the next couple of minutes? Gold Fury going to be very important. You have to imagine Nobody's Favorite will favor themselves with the Kraken in a moment like that. And Gore, with that, and to bring it back to itemization, I think mid lane builds are going to see a lot of what we're seeing now between Vi and Elion. This flat penetration mindset has been hyper important for mid laners.
And not only that, but realistically, early on, all the flat pen items also have a lot of good power numbers on them, so it really does get to double down for you, but it feels comfortable, you get good fights, and I think it's opening up the conversation. A lot of damage so far from the Tiamat, but you're seeing equal damage. Whenever that Kraken has connected, it has been a lot in one area. So Nobody's Favorite just have to find a little bit more of that. I'm also watching all of these marked camps, watch their cooldowns, because look at the obelisks. I mean, they're both virtually full.
That's right.
We've seen Monster Bomber walked in, stole one Lotus from Nobody's Favorite's obelisk. And so now they're trying to figure out the last little bit. That's going to be a big like difference maker. Again, it's like an HP aura for your teammates. It can heal up towers, but it also helps get free damage against any enemies when you're nearby them. It's a good enough buff that you really want to get it. And Monster Bomber keeps floating around that side of the map. I feel like he wants to go for a little bit more, and is just worried. I mean, it's one dash from dashboard, and all of a sudden you're dead, just going for something as simple as a steal there.
Yeah, the obelisk score, I think will be intriguing how heavily prioritized stealing away camps, stealing away obelisks, things like that are. Monster Bomber walks in towards the obelisk right now. Was it an overextension? The ultimate says yes, and out Monster Bomber will head. And so you're not going to have Ragnarok for a couple of minutes here. We'll have Blink, but if you're looking for a reverse card to engage, might be a little bit limited with Monster Bomber's ultimate being down. Tiamat minion heads its way towards dashboard. Monster Bomber plenty well protected, but watch out, Conviction in some trouble.
There it is, and that's going to charge up the obelisk enough. In-my-Zin might be able to take this fight, though.
And it's Schlemy rotating in as well. That's big damage out from Conviction, but there's just way too much from nobody's favorite. Big rotation in. Leon still has his Kraken, so watch for that on the back end of this fight. And it whiffs, looking for the pluck, but Valo used the beads and he remained in place. Still setting the ultimate out, but at least the beads are now gone for the reverse card jungler.
You know what? Grand scheme, that does not look great, right? I mean, there's nobody there. It doesn't hit, doesn't connect. But if you look at what the theory was, that was on the back of a really, really good-looking pluck. It just happens that the beads on the other side outweigh the Kraken that was waiting for him.
Monster Bomber is stunned in place, halfway back to getting the Ragnarok there. Score big change. Scorpion's no longer on the map, and that means the Gold Fury just spawns when it's ready.
Yeah.
What is it, 4 minutes in, I think?
5 minutes.
5 minutes in? Yeah, 4 would be an interesting number. 5 it is. And so, I don't know if that's... Let me rephrase. They spawn on their own, but still around the outside of the maps here to enhance the buff. So Gold Fury, do we imagine we'll start to see difference in priority or timing? I don't know if the Gold Fury Scorpion really changed how early people were willing and teams were willing to rotate over there and start to prioritize that objective. It spawned quickly enough after taking it anyway. Still waiting, 17 minutes, regardless of Scorpion or not.
There's been metas, because pre the Scorpions over there, like for the longest time in Smite, it always did just spawn at 5 minutes, right? So Gold Fury has notoriously been there. Might have to hold that thought, because Leon's in trouble.
Yeah, Leon, this is the downfall of the Poseidon. Good Aegis, but Leon will fall down nonetheless. And so that's a good engage. Right on time when the Ragnarok comes back up, Monster Bomber able to exert a little pressure on the nobody's favorite mid laner.
Now being able to... That sounds really mean, by the way. Nobody's favorite mid laner.
Yeah, right.
It's just the name of the team. Swear.
Nobody's favorite. Well, the Kraken Gore is now not on the map, so the steal pressure limited for nobody's favorite. And the reverse card will walk right on in.
No
Gold
Kraken.
Fury melted through. Dashboard close. And reverse card secure the Gold Fury. But the fight after, not looking quite as good. And nobody's favorite at least will pull back one. And so you lose Leon ultimately in the grand scheme of things. You're able to get the support if you're nobody's favorite. But Gold Fury, the big difference maker here in reversed card, make a big call.
They might be trailing by 3 kills, but every fight the last couple of minutes has really felt good for a reverse card here. You get a Kraken that doesn't really get anything. You kill Leon before his beats come back. That ult is not available to help secure a Gold Fury. This time you get a Gold Fury, you lose only your support, but you killed the mid laner prior. Like, every single thing about that is what you want going your way. If you could have gotten Pyromancer, it probably would have made you feel even better about your lead. But you've got to be able to take what you have and really make it grow. With Pyromancer off the board, you need one good team fight, Fire Giants on the table. Go for some invades. Like, try to force something to happen here, or look at these obelisks when they come back up in a couple of minutes.
This one feeling close. The reverse card have now pulled the biggest lead of the game so far. The big difference, of course, down in kills, but up in gold is something that that has been said plenty of times throughout the existence of Smite. But you're right, the experience still somewhat close there. And all it takes is one Kraken Core. I think the playmaking ability of Leon and piloting the Poseidon, especially when Leon, I mean, if he's on the map, right, I don't know if reverse card are ever going to feel fully confident in pulling out an objective. So I think the shot calling there was near perfect from reverse card to find the kill on the priority target and then immediately rotate into an objective that suddenly the steal pressure is off the map a little bit. Saw some good damage go on the left side of the map just a moment ago from Schlemy, and that big 4-man rotation from nobody's favorite. Feels like Valo has slowed down a bit, though. That early kill on the right-hand side has now been met with like heavy answers from nobody's favorite.
Yeah.
And the Gilgamesh, despite now a big gold lead for reverse card, he hasn't quite been able to be comfortable as of late.
And it was a two-level experience lead overall. Now he's actually a level behind Shmi.
Right.
So Valo, it has been a little while since we've actually focused in. So this Gilgamesh maybe needs a little bit more. And this is where things get awkward, you know, because you look at the two warriors that they have on reverse guard. Slash, as an Osiris, able to get a lot more hands-on, I think, earlier than this Nike will. But Nike's now level 19, got a lot of items under her belt, has the Blink online and the ult available. Team fights are going to be different when nobody's favorite actually group up and Malachi is a part of this.
Right.
And that really is going to be... it's going to test their mettle because look at reverse guard. They don't have a sprint. They don't have anything to really deal with the shielding. They don't have anything to deal with the slow. And so one massive ult from Malachi theoretically can then lend and lead into a huge sweep for nobody's favorite. Easy setup for Dashboard, for Zen, and for Elion. And that makes it a lot easier to find these kills off a Kraken, or whether it be the Suns, or a good Ricochet. It'll be fun to watch if they can make it unfold the way they want to.
Gore, itemization has been fun to watch as some of these games have unfolded as well. Runeforged Hammer, I feel like it's been popular on some individual instances throughout the last couple of games we've seen. Valo grabs one of those for the Gilgamesh in this game. Will we see some value out of it? Are we tower diving the Nike? We're sure gonna try. Up down for Malachi, no good. There is the Sentinel of Zeus, but Malachi will hold on to the ultimate. So we're considering some damage if we're a reverse card, but not the full-on dive as Shlemi had rotated through for a little bit of assistance. And I want to look at the mask as well for Monster Bomber here, Gore. A Fenrir and his ability to get into the fray maybe lends itself to the way that we are seeing the Lono's mask being picked up for Monster Bomber.
And I always love this because you get CCR, you don't deal as much damage, you don't heal as much, which actually as Fenrir does matter. That healing done means that you're not going to be able to lifesteal as much. But realistically, you're going to live a little longer, and you're going to be able to try and get in there and fight a little bit more, which is what Monster Bomber's been trying to do this entire time.
Valo blinks, and there's nothing there that he wants to be a part of on the other side. Beads out from Vi, walks back into that whirlpool and actually takes a decent little chunk of damage. There's your flat pen, Divine Ruin, Spear of the Magus, doing some work there for Elion, and then Obshard completed as well. Vi has completed Rod of Tahuti, and so keep your eyes on these mid laners who are both poised for big damage numbers in this next fight. Dashboard has to lurk in the waters, and out goes the Sobek, out goes the Nike as well, and reverse card have shown enough face to make nobody's favorite think twice.
Now, if Shlemi was any other god than Kalina, I'd be a little more worried, but you can walk through walls, so I'm not too stressed out about it. I think that is wild. We're watching Monster Bomber, you know, take away some of the obelisk and take away and rightfully spawn their own scepter. And I think that's probably going to be the most important thing that comes out of that, because despite the fact that Fire Giant was started up, that fights happen and you get some ults drops, realistically, that is such a big deal because you finally got a buff out of it. But now you've got that Kraken available, the Fury spawning back up, and the fight's still going on.
There is a Kraken on the map this time. Will Leon use it for damage in a team fight, or will he use it for objective secure? In through the jungle, come reverse card. Valo's grabbed the first, but Malachi, the Sentinel of Zeus, will answer back for nobody's favorite. 1 for 1, both supports down. Dashboard did not have his ultimate to get on out, but look at this, reverse card and pulled the Fury.
And with Kraken available, all you need is some eyesight there for Leon.
Oh,
or a good fight.
Malachi is low, and Valo does not have the last bit of damage. Neither of these two teams ready to pull the objective. Health bars looking very similar across the board. That could be a difference maker, and it is for a reverse card instead of nobody's favorite. As reverse card jump back in, Leon under chase.
In?
But how? How has this Poseidon lived as long as he has? Leon will finally fall. We have traded carry for mid laner. Leon falls, but so does Conviction.
Honestly, that's a toss-up as to whether or not who comes out on top. Both level 20, both doing pretty well. It'd come down to like their net worth, things like that. It is unfortunate though. Leon has had, and I'm going to say this in a duality, the best worst Krakens in the world. Which is that they are all really well positioned and well timed, and they should get a lot done for the team. But unfortunately, every time it's a beads that stops a pluck. It's a beads that gets them out of the area just in time to make sure it doesn't do enough damage. It's always just shy of really winning the team their fight. And it's not really in his power, it's everybody's reactions on reverse card that have really slowed it down. So they're doing a great job of stopping this. It's the beads from Osiris that time that give the CC immunity to let him get out of there. But now that that's off the table, you've got Primal, you've got Pyro, you've got Fire, you've got so much available to you that you don't have to worry about for a little bit. Leon's now respawned, but that Kraken is still going to take a little bit longer to be available and ready to take anything.
And you will want it right now if you're nobody's favorite. If reverse card pulled this objective, Dashboard in some trouble. Ragnarok out, and he's got a whole world of hurt around the other side. No chance for the Sobek, and that is now 45 seconds of a 45. And how about this call from nobody's favorite?
I love
it's
this.
a 3-man FG over on right, and nobody from reverse card is in range. Fire Giant to nobody's favorite. And Leon was just vibing in the mid lane. Didn't even have eyes for the Fury, didn't have eyes for the FG, was just making sure that reverse card would not be able to rotate through without being seen, and nobody's favorite with the call. They sacrifice their support and grab an FG. I'll call it for free with an asterisk on it.
And I mean, you know, like you said, you lose the Fury. You might lose the Pyromancer. You might lose a couple of towers. You've got 4 people with Fire Giant, and they've all been doing pretty well in these team fights. I mean, Zin still hasn't died yet. If this came down to who's going to push harder, it's going to be nobody's favorite. The gold lead is definitely still skewing in favor of reverse card, and you're starting to see that in some examples of items tier 2s where tier 1s are bought, or being able to upgrade potentially to some glyphs, or otherwise aren't afforded. But realistically, this is going to be a big boost for nobody's favorite.
Tower absolutely shredded, and reverse card continue their onslaught. Malachi, Sentinel of Zeus, it's big. That health shield, important in keeping the solo laner in the fight a little bit longer, but this is a 2 versus 5 we're looking at here. Where's nobody's favorite? They're pushing down the mid lane, grabbing a Phoenix
They're
for
going
themselves. Are they going to try to end this game? Leon has Kraken. In my Zen's got damage
minions.
as well. They have got minions. The Kraken will do serious work. The backs are stopped. Valo, though, heads back to base now. Leon jumped on, but he evaporated. As Valo is in my Zen, will pick up the last little bit on the reverse card jungler, and it's not going any better on the right side of the map. Vi snags one on the dashboard, but then Vi dies as a big call from nobody's favorite. And this game, Gormizer, it will end, and nobody's favorite turning around.
Look, if you want to talk about the fact that we always mention and have been harping on, hey, these X player has been playing competitively for a while. Blank has a lot of competitive experience. That's why, because nobody else says, all right, guys, let's go Fire Giant, and then let's just send 2 of you. Yeah, 2 of you go over there to defend against 5 on left, and the rest of us are gonna run down mid and see what happens. You get the Phoenix, they make the call to stay there, they get a good kill. If that kill is just a little short or it takes a little longer, then you probably lose Leon and this game's still going, but just really good, sustained, controlled damage coming out from this team to make a call like that, to really just pull that game and then just squeeze it and get all of the juice they could out.
I mean, that is a serious series of calls there from nobody's
and they're
favorite.
all good.
I mean, rewind back to the grand scheme of what allows that moment to happen, and it's the call to poke the Sobek's head around the corner and just see what's happening with the Fury.
Yeah.
Send everyone back to the FG as you outline, and then just sort of the world that they set the stage, nobody's favorite did for the next 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes of that game. And when we talk about Leon and his ability to shot call and set the stage, things like that are exactly what we're talking about. The gold was there for reverse card. The ability to end that game in a near fight was there for reverse card. Nobody's favorite will pull the rug out from underneath them. Game number 1 to nobody's favorite. Game number 2 coming up next.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, Tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. A phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with a who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bugging. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build them a fortune. I'm flipping the ride. I can't be mixy when iffy the vibe. And 40 on 50 is really the time. Why are you all on my phone like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I don't know if you thinking I'm blind. Cross on my crosses and doubt on my eyes. Done with your efforts, I'm dealing with pressures. I know it's a lesson, that's word of the wise. Dubbing the mixes I'm mixing, I know I've been missing. I needed some personal time. All the pictures, dimensions, I don't with your digits. I mean it, I'm staying inside. Cause they got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems. I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems. I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back. Tell me I'm garbage, I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone in affection, I summon and dub it.
Hello and welcome back to our second set. Getting ready to go into the second game of Nobody's Favorite versus Reverse Card. And maybe we should rename Nobody's Favorite because they're the ones who pull out the Uno reverse card at the end of the game.
Jesus Christ.
They go for an end call, that being, reverse
How long were
card
you working on that?
I literally just came up with it on the
That's
spot.
actually impressive,
I'm going to
then.
be honest, I just came up with it as
That's
that
good.
transition was happening. But they pull out the Uno reverse card instead of, reverse card ending the game on a right side push. Instead, it's Elion making the call, and we did actually confirm, and Elion did make that end call to go push up that mid lane, end that game. Most importantly, being able to stop all those backs is probably the most impressive part, in this kind of 2v5 situation, being able to stop everybody from going back and stopping that push.
Yeah, I mean, we should go back a little bit further and evaluate some of the macro play throughout the early portions. Reverse card was actually getting the better end of a lot of these engagements, netting themselves neutral objectives as well as a couple of team fight wins. But by the time it was time to start moving in towards those more major neutral objectives, I'm talking about the Fire Giant, it was actually Nobody's Favorite, 4,000 gold down, who pick up that objective and then create a situation where they are capable of going for these backdoor wins. That was, by the way, an LA owned call. The second you saw it, if you're an LA owned fan, you know that's a call that he's always willing to make, and we did get confirmation from him himself that, yeah, that was him. But even then, I think it comes down to a couple of micro misplays that allows Nobody Favorite to go for that end. It wasn't even necessarily that reverse card had their back stopped. They got one individual member back to base, and then a couple of other members of reverse card say, okay, well, he should be able to handle it on his own. We'll just go ahead and stick our own engagement. Let's try and take out this right side Phoenix. And not the case. The man who backed got slammed by a Kraken, and then the Titan fell immediately afterward. But with all that said, with a name recognition that Nobody's Favorites roster is comprised of, I would argue that reverse card essentially have the rug pulled out from under them, and they had essentially already won that game through the macro. That was a much, much closer game than I was expecting.
And the man there on the screen, Slemmy, really putting in some big
That guy's
work
crazy,
during
right?
that game. I mean, you've been talking about Slemmy. We've been hearing about him all day, just how crazy this man is. And now we got a first-hand look in the midst of this competitive set. As you said, they were going down 4K by the time that end call really comes through there for Nobody's Favorite team here. But Slemmy putting in some work on that guy. We kind of seen some bans throughout it. We got to see, a little bit of a break since her initial debut, but now we got to see just the potency and the shred that Kleena has specifically up against objectives, up against gods, the threat she can put at just about any one of those objectives. I mean, we saw the one Gold Fury where she goes in the wall, she drops a trap, and you essentially have to either force yourself off that objective or you have to play in and try and DPS check it.
Yeah, and also worth pointing out that Schlemmy goes for the less traveled of the two paths of Jotuns instead of going for that essentially sundering Jotuns. He picks up the lifesteal Jotuns, which actually had major implications in some of these late game team fights where he's able to slip away with very minimal HP, utilizing the lifesteal from both Serrated and the Jotun's passive. Very interesting to see some of these players bringing out some of these less utilized items on what is essentially one of the largest stages we're going to see this year. SPL spots are on the line and still performing at that level.
Yeah, solid game one here, back and forth pretty much the entire way through. Game number two, imagine maybe we'll see some change-ups in the picks and bans here. We saw a lot of Giannis hover out of Elion.
He's going to keep
we'll
doing
at least
that.
talk about it because we know he's probably going to do it again. But how did you kind of feel about the Poseidon throughout this game? There were a couple of big team fights where we saw some Krakens kind of miss the mark, but those few times that he really did slam that Kraken, we really got to see the effectiveness of that damage.
Yeah, as long as you're hitting over 50% of your Krakens, I think you're performing at par or above par, right? You can't expect to land every single one of these all the time. I think Leon had a good enough hit rate that Poseidon was a valuable pick for his team. I think had he gone for Giannis, this very likely would have just been a loss. Giannis can't backdoor a Titan, right? Like, that's just not an option for this pick. And I think that Poseidon probably does have a decent home in Season 9. My only concern for that pick in the initial Ps and Bs was the ability for reverse card to very easily dive him. But Leon kind of circumvents that issue by saying, I simply won't participate in the team fights. I will just go somewhere else. I'm going to kill your Titan and not you guys. And that's a strategy that worked out for him.
Even some cases we saw him kind of use himself as bait and then drops a Whirlpool at his feet and then a Kraken right after when a couple jump on it. Picks and bans, though, for game number two between Nobody's Favorite and reverse card. Camazotz and Artio. The first one's off the board. No surprise with the dominance that these gods have had through the test of time, and even a Gilgamesh kind of sprinkled in there. Now we got to see just what a Gilgamesh could do in that last game. But even still, they don't want to let that one through, that being Nobody's Favorite. So they'll ban it away. And then one more ban out of reverse card. Fenrir finally seeing a hit in the ban.
Yeah, Fenrir is a pick that I think is going to be around for as long as the Obelisk is around. That god, through the support roles, able to control the Obelisk flowers so incredibly well. It is nigh impossible to stop him from going over to your own Obelisk and just kind of hijacking some of your own resources because he's got so many escape tools. He's so largely mobile. CC immunity in the ultimate makes it very hard to lock him down. This is a pick that has had a lot of buzz coming into this week. The Amaterasu locked in. It's something we essentially just let go of throughout the duration of Season 8. But now in Season 9, with some of these itemization changes, she really can just become a bully. I'm excited to see what Nobody's Favorite is able to do with this.
We saw it, I believe, once or twice out of Nika specifically, kind of piloting this Amaterasu, and it had mixed varying degrees of success. I think it did get like an early first blood, which isn't something that you normally see out of an Ama in lane. But with a lot of the change-ups to the items, Death's Toll is a popular potential item that she could pick up. Bluestone's coming back in, though that doesn't really help her out as much. Changes to Warrior's Axe, but most importantly, a lot of like Berserker Shields, Runeforge Hammer, things like that have really been making her a powerful pick. And now we finally get to see it. It was banned in Game 1, but now we get to see the Season 9 debut of Agni here in Game number 2.
Expect a lot of damage output from this god. It's going to be a little bit of a slower early game. Around level 5 is where Agni's going to start to hit his stride. I know that's not groundbreaking analysis, right? The god who's got 3 ultimates is going to get a lot better when the ultimate's available. But it is incredibly true, especially around that second item slot. Agni is going to become a very hard to deal with threat on the map. His ranged engagement still incredibly strong. That's been one of his main assets throughout the entirety of Smite, the ability to drop the Rainfire and the Noxious Fumes and just initiate some of these engagements for your team. But now more so, I think itemization really favoring this pick, as well as some of the recent buffs. Noxious Fumes doing explosion damage additionally, as well as now being able to utilize Conduit Gem a little bit better, has all kind of added up to a perfect storm where I think we're going to start seeing a lot more Agni.
And specifically, the Calamitous Rod Tahuti is a great god to set it up for just himself. I mean, you basically guarantee a 1-second stun. You only need that like 0.5 second delay after to guarantee to hit the meteor, and Agni is a great god to do it. So what was 3 bombs now basically becomes a 4th one if he can get those off in the midst of the team fight. Pairing alongside the Agni is an Osiris. We'll wait to see if that one ends up going jungle or solo like we saw last game. But against that, we have Sol and Sobek. Sobek making his way back onto the roster one more time.
Yeah, Sobek is just a consistent pick. I think Sobek is one of the most meta/nerf resistant gods in Smite. I mean, you're always going to have great displacement tools. Your peel tools are incredibly strong. CC immunity in the ultimate that allows you to travel means that you've got decent objective steal potential as well as confirmation. It's very good for locking down these team fights. So I think that Sobek is always going to be a flavor pick, and it's a pick that I really do closely associate with El Leon. I think he very much encourages his teams to go towards this pick because of how he likes to play around it. It's something that's been consistent throughout his entire career. So no surprise to see Nobody's Favorite go back towards it. What is surprising is this Izanami lock-in on the other side. That's going to net this squad a lot of early pressure. I was expecting them to want to play more so through the mid lane, considering the early trajectory of Agni's power curve. But with Izanami locked in, that's going to get you a lot of pressure in the long lane. It's going to allow you to start moving in towards the enemy purple buff or even potentially some reds. This could be a situation where Reverse Card is trying to drag some of the attention away from this Agni and allow him to farm up throughout the early.
We have been seeing a lot of Izanami throughout all of Season 8, up and through now here in Season 9, some priorities on picks and bans. Daji Medusa banned away by Reverse Card. Medusa been seeing a lot of rides ever since her changes with how her anti-heal applies, with all the changes to items that have made her such a strong boxer in the early game. Kepri banned away by Nobody's Favorite. And probably the most surprising ban, I think, out of all of these ones here, Bacchus taken away here. Is this maybe just a pocket ban? Like they know that Reverse Card has a Bacchus and they're taking it?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. I was not expecting to see a Bacchus priority ban whatsoever. It's a pick that I think can fit pretty well in Season 9, right? We've seen that, especially in the last set, some of these supports going for much faster builds, the Sovereignty immediately into the Heart War. You can then, from that point, start to itemize a little bit more so towards damage, and Bacchus is a god that can utilize that incredibly well. But that said, there's still just so many other incredibly strong supports available and on the field. We haven't seen it yet today, but I think Yamoja is still incredibly strong as well. So there are some options going forward.
Wait, yeah, you just mentioned Yamoja, and that completely blanked from my mind that we have not seen her basically at all. Maybe
they forgot.
Maybe a stray ban here or there, but yeah, a lack of Yamoja so far, but not a lack of Sylvanas, as he's being hovered here alongside Serket. But there's no way that that's going to be it. I mean, they've got Sol, so they've got a Hunter or a mid laner. They've got Sobek and Amaterasu, so you got to imagine that's their solo support. So this Sylvanas, he's baiting us. This is 100% a bait by Leon. He is hovering this Sylvanas to mess with us.
Bro, I mean, Leon loves doing this kind of stuff where he just like hovers some incredibly wild picks to keep his enemies guessing. He loves doing it. He did it back in the console days. He did it back in the SPL days. He's going to keep doing it here today. I guarantee you, he's like listening to the cast right now. He's like, I think I made him talk about Sylvanas and losers. No,
I
think
had
this
to double
Poseidon's gonna
take.
happen.
I had to double take for a moment to make sure if Sylvanas could have even been a possibility. I look back over and I see, Sobek Alma. I'm like, okay, there's no way. Okay,
Oh my
no,
God.
there is a way.
He's spiteful, bro. He did it out of spite.
So this is Sylvanas mid then, or is this Sylvanas ADC with Mannequin Scepter, or Sylvanas mid with Mannequin Scepter? I don't know. That's the only way I can really see the Sylvanas panning out is if you're going Mannequin Scepter and he's not playing support.
I think we could very likely have Sobek over in the Soul lane. He holds his own relatively well there. That's going to put Soul over in the long lane. Amaterasu out of the jungle, which could leave you with a Circuit Sylvanas lane, which is pretty heavy aggression. There's a lot of good lockdown there. The ability to find God kills is pretty good. If you are going towards mannequins, you're not sacrificing too much in lane clear. Yeah, I don't know. And it seems like they don't know either. You see the smile on that man's face? That's the I don't know what to do. I didn't. It's like when you're at a party and you don't hear somebody, so you just like kind of smile and nod. That's what I'm getting from this player cam right now. Nobody's favorite has got me confused.
I am absolutely baffled how this composition is going to pan out for nobody's favorite. But one thing that we can be a little bit more certain on here, and maybe the one that we can talk a little bit more in depth on here, is reverse card. Osiris, Erlong Shen, and Yamoja as the front line. Or Erlong Shen most likely towards that jungle spot. Yamoja, we talked about not seeing a lot of Yamoja, and maybe they heard and they're like, all right, fine, I guess we'll just 10th pick Yamoja, who was a god who was first banned material not even a month and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, Yamoja's just going to be a strong pick. I mean, maybe the change to Shell, now having Phantom on one of the upgrades, has kind of dissuaded players from going towards Yamoja because you're not forcing somebody into going for a relatively weaker relic. Now they're still just getting Shell, but happen to be able to walk through walls as well, which could indirectly kind of affect Yamoja's power rankings. But I think that her healing, her damage output, her control in lane, all things that are still going to be unaffected by the Season 9 changes. So I don't really think we're going to see a lack of Yamoja going forward. And then the rest of the reverse cards draft is just like pretty standard across the board. It's hard to want to talk about them when I keep looking over at nobody's favorite, and it's just like I'm still brain blasting Jimmy Neutron style, just trying to figure out what's going on here.
I mean, the Alma is going to be good along this team more than anything just because of her passive, hits a few basic attacks on something. You do more damage to it. So that's going to amplify Soul's damage out the wazoo. Sylvanas can get some extra damage if he ends up going full build. I think more than anything, I just want to know where this Sylvanas is going. Is this going to be a mid Sylvanas? Is this going to be a carry? Is this going to be a support? I don't know where this god is going, Mifflin.
Yeah, me either. It really is getting me guessing, right? I mean, the only things that I think you could really realistically flex, I've got Soul locked in mid for my money. Sobek obviously going to Soul lane in my mind as well. So then you've got the opportunity to either have an Amaterasu Sylvanas lane or you can have a Circuit Sylvanas lane. Both have certain levels of merit. Amaterasu would have the superior clear, Circuit would have the superior kill potential. But I think that Sylvanas is going over towards the long lane. Whether or not he's going to be operating as the hunter, yet to be seen. You could have Circuit be a dedicated support and then have Sylvanas go towards this mannequin-style build with rings. And Nimble Rod could change some things up as well. But it's weird. It's just weird.
Well, let's delay no longer. Let's jump right into Game 2 and figure out where this hodgepodge of a team is going.
Plenty of answers await us on the other side of this graphic. Nobody's favorite and reverse card. We're on our desk for a loop, and for good reason, because we've got some weirdness locked in. And, well, actually, I think Miff was wrong on everything. I think literally everything Miff said was wrong. So it's Malachi on Hala solo.
I'll stand in solidarity.
Sylvanas mid for Elion. Sobek not solo lane, he's support. And then MI Zen, not mid lane, ADC. I wouldn't be surprised if Miff walks down the hall to the player booths, then death stares Elion for what he just put him through there on the desk. Good luck breaking this one down, Gore. I think he could probably say something about Amaterasu solo. And that's it.
Well, you know what? Hey, Circuit's played in the
Circuit,
jungle.
right,
Yeah, there you go.
jungle.
Soul is carry. And you know what? Dashboard
actually,
just played so bad. I
Wait.
can say stuff about all of these.
wait, I'm wrong. No, I'm wrong. I was dunking on Myth, and now I'm wrong. You're right. You could say something about
The
everyone
dunker becomes the donkey day.
except Leon on Sylvanas mid. Now, full damage Sylvanas, Gore, is something I've played against, like, jokingly.
I have a friend that loves to play it. He likes to get every ring. He says he's got a branch for each one of them.
Is that Coldfire?
Yeah, that is. No, that's spot on.
For some reason, the last time we all played together, like, I remember him.
Did he
remember the
do
full
it?
yeah.
It's not surprising.
All right, so as someone maybe, Gore, who's vaguely familiar with playing with it on your
Sure.
team, what are realistic expectations here?
Well, so here's the thing that's wild. He's still, if you're looking at it, one of the things that he does in the duo lane is actually still applicable in mid, which is that he clears really well, right? He's hitting
Right.
everybody. Granted, is it going to be better than a normal mage? Probably not at the end of the day, right? I mean, it's just going to be the normal auto attacks, but it does do a little bit of damage. It should help a lot with these early game camps as well, along with the jungle, and he's got a lot of CC. Admittedly, when he transitions to late game, you're just looking at a guy who has a good heal, a good pull, and a good knockup.
Let's see what we've got damage-wise. There's plenty of it onto Vi, and First Blood
One
right
more
around the
hit.
corner, but not there. And Elvion on the mid lane, Sylvanas will be one auto attack shy of getting First Blood, but there you see some of the pressure and some of the damage that damage on Sylvanas will provide you, forcing out Vi in the mid lane already.
And that's more or less going to exist until Agni can full clear the wave with his 2. And realistically, it's going to be difficult to kill him because he can heal,
He
also
fight
he can
here.
heal.
He can just fight here as well. There's a taunt back in. His First Blood
Root.
here, finally.
Pull!
Oh, the pull. Yeah, baby, from Leon, and there it is. Sylvanas mid grabs First Blood 2 minutes in. And nobody's favorite off to a great start. Hey, red buff, that's spawning as well. We will take it to go.
You know, earlier, I was going to say I stand in solidarity with Myth because I had said, watch this be something even more wild, and it's going to be Sylvanas jungle. Happy I was wrong, because that's fun to watch overall in
Would
mid.
we say Sylvanas jungle is more wild than Sylvanas mid? Good, I took it back. I thought there might be a fight there. Malachi loses his blue. And Slash, who is very much on Erlang Shen solo, by the way. We haven't
Oh,
got-
wow. Wait, what?
We haven't gotten to talk about that yet. I do wonder that, I mean, Sylvanas anywhere but support is always going to be wild. So, like, how much more wild is mid compared to jungle as, like, a game of fractions, right? It's just as weird, but maybe a little bit more so here and there. But Elion, Gordon, and nearly got First Blood onto Vi a couple seconds before the actual First Blood rolled through. But then Leon grabs a miraculous pull to lock in First Blood. And I believe we'll be able to look back at it and see Leon in the big play. And
watch.
smart trades here to set this up.
I think he only gets it because he ticks to level 4 here, because he ends this at level 4 and gets the pull
Oh, you're right.
and is able to pull that in. I would bet that's where that level comes in. No, he had it. He had
he
one
had
in
it right.
each. But either way, I mean, that is just
just
like
saved it.
perfect timing for him, being able to get a pull like that. That's what you expect to see out of Sylvanas in mid. It's what you expect to see out of Sylvanas otherwise. It's just this one's going to do a little more damage than some of the others. He's going to have a root that hits a little harder. His 2, it's going to heal him. It's also going to do some decent damage on the other side.
9 turns blessing used by Slash, and that heal
Uh-oh.
is going to be
Uh-oh.
needed. Half HP, dazzling offensive. I'll take one, please, says Malachi, and nobody's favorite. Off to a great start here. Amaterasu's been banned out all day long, and the first time we will see her locked in will be for an early kill for nobody's favorite.
Now, Dave, I feel bad. I'm going to bring this back to this game.
Okay.
But in a world where Amaterasu is in the meta, I'm more scared of the Oni homies this tournament than anybody else.
right,
Because
Nika.
had an insane win rate. Was that season 7? It was like an 89 or something ridiculous like that. Maybe even higher % win rate on this Ama. And that makes me not only worried for any team that has to find themselves up against the Oni homies, but also worried for anybody here, because if she is the meta, or in the meta, she does provide a lot for her team that can control the game.
How much trouble is dashboarding? There is a lurking in the water. There's a nice
A
buck
lot.
sends conviction around the side. Dark portal dodged. And dashboard just
Oh my
waltzes
God.
right on out. There's a knockup from Elion, and that is a lot of
No
damage. You're telling me
way.
that was a 4 versus 1, and it's nobody's favorite? Who's going to grab the kill? Massive rotation in from the Sylvanas. Pull dodged out by Vi. A little bit telegraphed there, but Elion makes reverse card pay for collapsing.
There's a world where Vi isn't paying just enough attention.
Yeah.
And then that's another kill right there. That is insane. First off,
That's
Dashboard.
me. I get pulled by that.
Honestly, most people get pulled by that in any given day. Dashboard lived through all of that, and he's able to now
He
sustain
turned
up.
back around and went in.
He wanted to fight more. That is just a good showcase. A couple of good jukes, breaks some ankles, gets out of there, is just fine. They dumped so much on reverse card to get that. And this is so different from last game. I mean, last game, we're talking about the fact that it is a mostly even game up to a very distinct point. But then you get a fight like this early on. They've already got a 1K gold lead at this point if you're nobody's favorite, and you're able to turn so much. There's the anti-heal that gets spread out, but Valo isn't able to do anything more. Monster Bomber is too low to try and fight. The same thing can be said for Vi. Everybody had to run away at that point, and so nobody's favorite gets to just run rampant in the jungle and turn it into something. Now they're up by 2 to 3K.
That's a nice riptide from Monster Bomber. Force the dodge out of Leon, who does not connect with the pull. And Vi on this Agni will be able to back away. Farm back up in the mid lane. Looks like a speed buff steal for Valo, as Schlemmy just a little bit too low to stick around, but stick around he does. That'll set up the dazzling offensive floor to the Afterlife. Does get on to 1, but it's only 1. That's going to give Malachi this Amaterasu fine at chasing targets down. Oh, that's a big play from Valo. Nearly gets the kill on the Schlemmy. You're going to die for that every single time, but barely short on damage from getting a return kill.
You were going to die no matter what. So might as well die trying to get the kill as opposed to dying for nothing. And I like that. There's also a world where not only does that get the kill, it might even steal the speed buff away. But ultimately, we don't live in that world. Valo, unfortunately, is now 0-3. And that is an unfortunate spot to be
for the
if
Osiris.
You are a jungler. You are feeling the experience. I mean, it's only one level there, but you're really starting to feel the impact that Schlemmy is having across the map in hands of whether Dashboard is helping set up kills, whether it's Malachi, whether it's Leon. They are a little more all over the place than anybody else on the side of reverse card.
We have seen this story before, but this time the Rivers Rebuke is perfect. No chance for Dashboard to get out of that one, but nobody's favorite will collapse quickly. Leon still holding on to the ultimate. Dark Portal doesn't do much. And it looks like one and done for reverse card, at least getting a kill on the board. But it's onto the Sobek, and that gives a chance for this. The re-engage blink on in and knock up on out for Elion.
And anytime, he's almost got that pull on Vi, but he hasn't been able to get it. That's a good stun. This is a good re-engage for reverse card.
Valo, Lord of the Afterlife in, but immediately leaves. In a numbers advantage, reverse card still Gore. Not confident enough to continue fighting. Malachi avoids the solo kill. So Erlang Shen in the solo lane. Still strong enough to bully out Malachi despite 2 early kills.
We'll see how long that's going to be able to last. They haven't got a lot of safety items. Vi is just flirting with death and getting away with it very narrowly.
Death is interested.
Yeah, death is hovering around, but hasn't quite taken the bait just yet. As such, I mean, this Agni, look, more power to you. You're getting away with a lot that I really think should be punished at this point. But ultimately, as long as you're able to escape, it's opening up this conversation for the level gap starting to disappear. You really see it in solo. You see it in the duo lane. But everybody else, it's only about 1 level, maybe 2 now in mid. And that's really starting to stack up.
Yeah, I'm feeling fine on the net worth charts, though, if I'm nobody's favorite. Everyone in the lead of their counterparts. Elion engaged on. Big knock-up. And damage connecting onto Valo as well, but there's a stun on the other side, but Valo has to leap on out. There's a taunt in from Schlemmy as well, and nobody's favorite rotates in force, and Schlemmy gone too far, my friend. And Death will take that drink to go. Monster Bomber returns the kill, and when you're finally getting a kill, if you're a reverse card, you don't love it going on to Monster Bomber as your support, but at least you're getting something. But that's a nice rotation in from In My Zen, who's grabbed a helmet, Gore, to start off his build here. Some chaos in game number 2, but it's all working out for nobody's favorite.
It has been a wild 9 minutes to be in this game. And realistically, what we just saw from Schlemmy, let me describe exactly what that kind of death is. That's the kind of death that you get when you know that your team is ahead, and you just think, I can get him. Like, trust me, I can get him. I got this, no problem. Yeah, you bite off a little more than you can chew, you can end up going down. But like you had mentioned, In My Zen has made some good rotations so far and has done it without a ton of power under his belt. Now he's already got that spear, so I expect the next fight to be something that's going to be a little more punch from the soul. And Leon has been 2-0-1. I was actually thinking about this a second ago. The Chronos Pendant with the Sylvanas pass. You probably got a good cycle of rotations up pretty often for Leon. Your heel's going to be up a lot, your pull's going to be up a lot, and so it's fine when he misses some.
Look, Valo's already Vi rather's already 3 levels down. Leon is going to try to widen that gap. River's Rebuke has locked Leon in with Valo, and that is way too much damage from the level 11 Sylvanas. And at 3-0-1, Gore, Leon has made waves, I would say. We were wondering how the Sylvanas mid would look.
He's planted seeds in their minds.
Oh, I hated that.
Yeah.
No, I love
So
that.
you know, I'll be honest, I kind of hated it too. As
We have
I
a long year of that ahead. We are day 1.
Oh man!
of
Oh
season
no!
9.
I'm
We're
sorry.
already planting seeds in your mind for Sylvanas.
It's too early
Look,
for that.
this mid lane Sylvanas pick, or it's been the talk of the game so far.
Yep.
And plenty of pressure out from Elion, of course. But this Agni has just been kept behind. The jungle pressure as well that's made its way in the mid from Schlemmy has just made everything uncomfortable for reverse card. It feels like all the dominoes are stacked properly this game. Remember, in game 1, it takes a little comeback, a little creativity from nobody's favorite. This one, it feels like their ducks are in a row.
Valo has spent a lot of time in the jungle, unfortunately trying to play catch-up, hasn't been able to get as aggressive. That helped lead to Vi falling behind a little bit, especially because that early first blood, early kills coming down from Elion, and aggression from the team. And it's really made up a lot. Like, this first blood really does mean so much because it's against the enemy jungler. This sets back 2 people in the process of getting a kill like this. So this is a really, really good opportunity for them by being able to set themselves up and strip away. But then Vi has had to spend a majority of the rest of the game dodging out plucks from Leon. You'll see it at the end of this clip, but like, he has been everywhere and has been setting this up. You haven't been able to set up for damage if you're on reverse card because you're too busy trying to just absolutely ignore and dodge out what this Sylvanas is throwing at you.
That's a great rotation of abilities from Leon. Whenever it's on his perspective in any of these fights, you notice that the pull is continuously off cooldown and waited and saved for the last moment to grab that escaping target. And nobody's favorite has capitalized time and time again. Pyromancer being taken down by nobody's favorite. No answer from reverse card. Gold Fury not threatened on the left side of the map. Little extra gold will find its way into nobody's favorite back pocket. 3.8K. But Gore, maybe the more worrying number is the 5.1 thousand experience that nobody's favorite is ahead.
Yeah, that you feel. 11 minutes into the game, you feel
Both your
every
carries.
single level of that one. Yeah, having 2. I will say Vi is actually caught up. That was 11 to 8 just a second ago. So ultimately, 10 to 12 is a lot better look for you, I think, at the end of the day. But unfortunately, you're still feeling this in every engagement, every fight. Individual points are going to be hitting harder. Leon, at this point, should have his heal maxed out, should have a lot of damage there, things like that. It's just going to make things a little more difficult. Yeah, all in the heal and then 4 points already in that route, which I'll say as a support in the good, in good circumstances, already feels like you're hitting pretty hard. Like, not as hard as some support abilities can, but like, it feels pretty good, right, overall. And here, as a carry, it's going to hit even harder, and it's going to help set up a lot of kills. You can see that. I think it was 50% scaling on top of that, but 240 base. It's just a really good chunk to start off a fight, plus you either force a beads, you force a dash, you force something from reverse card to make sure that they don't get completely controlled by just one ability.
And Gore, speaking of dashboard, it feels like has gotten away with so much so far this game. The Sobek walks in, turns everyone's eyes towards it, and then lurks in the waters on out. Paid for last time in blood, but will it happen again? Monster Bomber plucked into the back. Big burst damage out of In My Zen, but dashboard again left alone. Taunt back through from Slash, but the Erlong Shen immediately disengages. Stun from Malachi has found the back line. Is now nobody's favorite regrouping in the jungle. Elion holding on to that knockup. It'll connect on a conviction, but in the meantime, Schlemmy has finally found an opening kill, and now you just collapse.
Oh my
And nobody's favorite walks in, takes down another 2 for none, and Gold Fury's on the menu.
I mean, and Dashboard, again, is just hovering close to dead. One hit is all it takes. All it will need is a coordinated assault from reverse guard, but they can't get coordinated. They're just getting separated. They're getting zoned out. It's great play by nobody's favorite to make sure they just rip them apart and don't let them play as a team here. It's led to a massive gold lead at this point. But realistically, you also have to look at the setup. You're getting good dashes from Dashboard. You're getting good taunts from Schlemmy, good engages from Malachi. And then it's just easy for Leon and Zen to do whatever damage they want to do afterward and see what they can accomplish with it. And all on top of that, I was going to highlight the Phantom Shell that has been picked up because we were talking about it a little bit earlier in the day. And it's great against Monster Bomber. I think we saw it once earlier. But you just get to use it for the good old-fashioned shell part of it there in that fight and stay alive.
Right, 2 relics in 1. I'll take that every day of the week. It used to be you had to get both. Not anymore for Dashboard, and it'll serve him well if he's going to engage in the way that he has. Watch out, Leon's got ulted. It is big. 3-man knockup from Leon, and look at those health bars melt. Vi, the second one to fall. Should be a third, a double kill for the Sylvanas mid. 502, and my man Leon is on a rampage.
Now, I will say, after what was a very wild ride in picks and bans to get to this point, I am really happy with the Sylvanas mid, and that is not a phrase I expected to say
This year?
Season 9
Yeah.
in general, let's just say.
In Smite.
Yeah, so this is going to be something that I think is very fun to watch, not only unfold the way it's been going, but I mean, 11-2, you've got 7,000 gold up on the other team, you get a Fire Giant on all 5 members. Give me ults like that from Leon in every single team fight, and I have no doubts that they are going to be a team that is absolutely fighting for one of those top 2 spots in an easy fashion at this rate. But realistically, you have to do so much. If you're a reverse card, put them into the other shoes. Valo's got to be able to step up here, only a level down. Not necessarily the end of the world, but 0-4 and 2, we haven't gotten to see a lot of this Osiris. Slash is really where you're feeling a lot of this. Slash and Vi, because they are both down by 4 levels right now. 3, since Slash just leveled up to 12. It's a very good game mode. It just came out. Make sure you go play it. But also, Erlang Shin has not been as impactful as we're used to seeing in this game so far. And that's really where I think things need to change for them. You need good taunts, you need good damage. And okay, you're pointing it out. I gotta give him credit.
Killing the Totem of Ku game.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ku diff all in favor of reverse card here.
That's literally it though.
That is about it.
That is it. Because Malachi has been elsewhere, 303, 3-level lead. I'll take all the Kus possible when...
Never before has that Totem of Ku counter been so detrimental to a point I was making.
Well, I think it supports your point, Gore. Because the only reason Slash has 8 is because Malachi has been gone in all the fights making an impact, right? Like, Slash just hasn't been able to be there. He's been getting them for free because he's stuck in lane. And so, Erlang Shen with the Sovereignty and Berserker Shield, I don't know, maybe towards the back end of this game something changes, but with Leon and the rest of nobody's favorite playing the way that they are, gonna be a steep hill to climb for a reverse card. Maybe once you start itemizing, a little magical defense, you've already got Heart Ward if you're Monster Bomber. That'll help out the team with that big burst damage from In My Zen and Leon. Gore, I think you're gonna need a little bit more than a Heart Ward to get your team back into this game if you're a reverse card. I don't even know if you bother defending this tier 2.
The Fire Giant on the other side and the way the fights have been going.
Yeah, right, they got FG.
I was gonna say, I'd probably give this up.
Well, Malachi has a minion wave, and so he'll get the tier 2 for free. This is a 5 versus 4. Keep that in mind as this fight breaks out. And Elion, he's looked at early on in this fight. And finally, the Sylvanas is dealt with, but In My Zen has returned the damage back tenfold. A 3 versus 4 now. Over on left, right side Phoenix being pressured by Malachi.
And he's got archers. He's got enough that this should be able to go their way, no problem. But losing Leon, I mean, 5-1 and 3 now, that 1 kill is actually worth a ton compared to what Valo is worthwhile. Now, is it worth losing your right side
tier
Phoenix?
2.
I'm not entirely sure if it's worth the objectives you just lost, but it is still worthwhile for you. You close up some of the gap, you cause a little bit of trouble for him, and ultimately you put yourselves in it's a very similar position if you're a reverse card. Everything is still kind of stacked against you here. You're 12k down, and now you have to worry about that right-hand side. But glory is, it's the right-hand side, not the left-hand side. You're going to be able to contest things like the next Fire Giant if you can make it that far, and you're going to be able to mount up a defense under your next Phoenix here. I don't know if I take a fight under the tier 2 with how fast they should be able to destroy it.
Tier 2 gone on left, tier 2 gone in mid. As In My Zen, the Tower Shredder on the Soul, deals the last bit of damage there. Primal Fury back up. That's where nobody's favorite will rotate in. So Elion has only died once so far this game, Gore, and it took a hell of a lot to get him there. And feeling like you only got 1 kill, you lost 1 kill anyway, you lost your right side, you lost your tier 2 on left, and now your tier 2 in mid for only 1 kill on the Sylvanas. Not feeling great for a reverse card. What you might need, Gore, I nearly regretted finishing that statement. I was going to say you need Vi to start to scale up and rain down some artillery. But he's 3 levels down on Elion and has 2.5 items compared to 3 fully completed for Elion. We're looking at a game that needs to go like 10 more minutes, 15 more minutes, and like nobody's favorite has the ability to regroup, maybe one more FG and end things.
This is where things, they get real awkward for reverse card. Because when you start talking about where are they in position, if you can ignore the 13,000 gold.
Hard to do.
If you can ignore the fact that there's still 5 towers standing for nobody's favorite,
Also
then theoretically, and no matter what in Smite, I actually stand by this. At a certain point, sometimes all you need is one fire giant fight to go your way, and it feels like 20 minutes is a good mark. This is not an easy fight for them. You mentioned it; they are down in levels, 3 in most of the roles, 4 for the carry. But if you can get a good win here, get that FG, you run down mid, you knock down that one half tier 1 that's still standing, the tier 2, the Phoenix, you could theoretically kill the Titan in enough time.
Gore, we are bending over backwards to find a way back into this game for reverse card. A lot of damage and enough damage onto Conviction, who stood no real chance. Beads down, Dark Portal down. That is Blink and ult from Leon, and you saw the burst damage that the root provided from the Sylvanas. Fire Giant has fallen off, but now you're in a 4v5 and you are in the lead by a hefty margin, and nobody's favorite has eyes towards the mid lane. Phoenix, silence out from Malachi. Dazzling offensive used. Defensive, that's a dazzling defensive from Malachi. And nobody's favorite will have to live to fight another day on the mid lane Phoenix.
I'll have to go look it up again, but I know it was in like the 20K area is the biggest loss we've seen while a team had a 20K gold lead at the time.
Oh, like the swing?
Yeah, so it is entirely... No, not swing, as in they were up by like 20 plus
If nobody's favorite lost right now, they would lose with a 15K gold lead. So
and
somebody lost with a 20K gold lead.
Absolutely more insane things happen. Granted, they are obscenely rare here. And for reverse card, I think this is the right play to call. You've just lost Conviction, sit back, make sure that those fire minions stay far away, and mount up a defense around your Phoenix. Now, the problem I'm seeing right now, Valo's too far out of the base. You need the experience, I get it, but that is a dangerous place to be playing in. You need to be able to defend this Phoenix.
Yeah, there are level discrepancies in the 3-4 range across the board. Double stun, that's nice from Vi, that'll help you out. But it's literally no damage, it's only CC. There's the rest of it. Shell used, Sprint used, and nobody's favorite uses those to get back out of the fight. Leon able to sustain up the rest of the nobody's favorite squad. Maybe one more push here, looking towards the end of this game.
Yeah, not going to be able to find the pull, but I love the damage they have in the setup. I mean, look at this, the healing, they're back at full health.
River's Rebuke, and there's no Phantom Shell to get nobody's favorite out. Working in the waters from Dashboard. But now you're kind of using one ultimate at a time to defend these if you're the reverse card. Dark Portal a second ago, River's Rebuke before that. Lord of the Afterlife will be back up off of cooldown. Still waiting for Lurking in the Waters in the Soul ultimate. But nobody's favorite still has a lot to work with.
Schlemmy's already split off, though, to make sure they try and get that right
there you
Phoenix.
go.
And now they're going back in.
Blink, ult, and it's good from Elion, as it has been all game long. Slash low, slash down. Double taunt as his death wail, and nobody's favorite group up as 5. Conviction evaporates before my eyes, and nobody's favorite with a Sylvanas in the mid lane will walk out of the Titan room and then presumably right back in. One by one, reverse card fall. And Gore, it looks like nobody's favorite are going to take a deep breath.
I can't imagine doing anything other than letting Leon heal everybody up, get some minions, and then rush back in.
There you go. Yeah, this one will end. Don't you worry, everyone. This game will be over, and it's nobody's favorite in 22 minutes. Sylvanas mid, 5-1-8 for Leon. And nobody's favorite, 2-0 over reverse card. We'll move on to the next round.
Let's make it 5-1-9. There we go. Just to make sure he gets the assist on that one. Yeah, it looks good. Look, if you had told me with what the I don't want to say catastrophe. What's another word for something that's absolutely like chaos? The chaotic nature of that picks and bans and how it felt. That was going to, first off, come out at a surprisingly normal draft, save for one pick, ultimately, but then at the end of the day, end up looking that good in that scenario as well. I think it's just impressive. It showcases what this team has to offer. It really did get off to a great start for them, and that just let them run away with it. I'm going to put out the PSA now. I do not recommend running your Sylvanas mids.
No, it's always happened.
Unless you can guarantee a start like that. It's going to not always go as well.
Wait, this always happens. Something gets played live on broadcast, and then my games are just taken over by it for days. And so I don't want to see Sylvanas mid unless I'm the one playing it.
Yeah.
I want to be the one playing it because I bet I could play it as good As El Leon, I bet I can.
I can play it as good as I play every other mid laner that I play.
Which is not
Actually,
well,
I could do it
in my
better.
case.
Yeah, no, same for me. So.
Fair enough. Nobody's favorite. Well, I'll give Myth the benefit of the doubt. He picked nobody's favorite in this set, and nobody's favorite with the 2-0 win. Myth, I was going to let you throw it to break, but you don't have a mic on. So we'll see you right after this, back with the desk.
seeing color. Lost without you, I can't make it through the night. How come I'm not seeing color? How come I'm not seeing color? So far gone.
what a game two that we get to not only win the game, but also win the set on a Sylvanas mid out of Elion, and nobody's favorites coming out with some out of left field strategies here. But that this kind of out of pocket strategy ended up working for them here in game two, and pretty convincingly, Mifflin.
You're so much nicer than me, J-Mac. Out of left field, interesting pick. Spicy, I think, is the buzzword I've seen tossed around a lot. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'll call a spade a spade. That was freak behavior, bro. That guy is just a strange human. Elion with the Sylvanas. I was walking back there, right? I have to walk past the player booths when I go sit down to, like, watch the games. And I walk past, and Elion looks up. He makes eye contact with me mid-game, and he goes, I didn't know what to do. I was like, what do I do with that? And then I get to where I'm going to sit, and he's like already 5-0. Like, what is going on? The damage output, the ability to play around these unorthodox picks is something that is going to make nobody's favorite a highly contentious team going forward. If you're able to bring out these strange picks, it's going to keep everybody guessing. It is not often that I am like 5 for 5 wrong on figuring out where gods are going to land on a draft. I had no clue going into this, and I gotta assume that reverse card had no clue either. And nobody's favorite is starting to look like a favorite. If you ask me, man, that was just impressive play through and through.
Yeah, I think after this game, they're definitely somebody's favorite out there. A strong performance across the board. Malachi over in that soul lane was able to get a lot of things rolling thanks to the help of the pressure that Elion and Schlemmy kind of alleviated in mid lane, allowed Schlemmy to make rotations over to solo and start getting some impactful plays, and kind of just let dual lane do its own thing. Going back to dashboard here on the Sobek, that one play kind of like it was like maybe 6 minutes in the game, and he's got 4 people surrounding him. Should have been dead. And then what happens? Elion blinks in the middle, gets a 4-man Wrath of Terra, and absolutely decimates the competition. I mean, these are plays that you don't get to see at the SPL 1 because we never see things like that. But getting 4 people with 1 Sylvanas ult 6 minutes in the game is just unheard of.
All right, well, to be fair, all right, sure, Dashboard, we'll give him some credit, right? He's juking around, he's playing a controller, incredibly impressive. They missed like 4 ultimates on him right there. Dude should have been dead for where he was standing. Luckily, Elion was having the wherewithal to move his way in there and make some strides happen. But you got to talk about Schlemmy. This dude out of left field is a guy that I had not heard of before, like about a month and a half ago. Comes out here, first LAN experience, 4-1 and 11, 9.5 KDA. Just impressive stuff. I can't imagine the nerves that this guy has to play through as well, considering how new he is to the scene. I believe he's only been playing competitive for about 1 year, and he's already competing for an SPL spot. I had to grind for like 3 years before I even got to smell SPL, man, and he's already on the heels.
And that's why we're sitting here on the desk, and he's going to be standing over here and talking to us
You don't have to
momentarily.
blast me like that.
Or actually talking to him right now. Let's talk to the jungler Schlemmy here and kind of pick his brain a little bit. First off, one thing that Miff was mentioning there is that this is kind of your first year in competitive. You started playing around the console scene. What's kind of been that journey going from just kind of starting up in console to now potentially fighting for an SPL spot?
I mean, it's been amazing. I've been waiting ever since I started, ever since I loaded up that game, my first competitive game. I've been waiting to have the chance at SPL, and it's just been my dream. And it's just a thrill to be able to have such a well-rounded team that is so confident and clean when it comes to game day. And I just love to be around them, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, so far you guys have been looking real strong. Tell me a little bit about the comms and picks and bans at the end of game, coming into game number 2. We saw the Sylvanas get hovered. We're like, no shot. He's just messing around. You've already got your front line. There's not a chance. What was Elion saying that entire time to actually convince y'all to let him lock that in?
I mean, we all just trust Elion so much. We know that if he wants to run a pick, if he wants to run a certain comp, if he wants to play a certain way, as long as we follow, we are always going to succeed. And I think having that trust in our shot caller, having that one person that can just get us the win, even if we just listen, is just something great to have. And I think that's just insanely great, and we can't really ask for more.
Yeah, you guys definitely look like you are ready for this. You got a competition up against Winter Dog. I'm going to give you the which one here. Who do you think is more out of pocket with their picks here, Elion or Benny Q when it comes to that mid lane?
I don't know. Last year we saw Benny Q at LAN pulling out anything, so I don't know. It's going to be fun to see what he pulls out this year.
Well, congrats on your win today. We'll see you next time in your next set up against the Winter Dogs. I'll let you get back to the team to celebrate.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Or congrats, I should say, not good luck.
Good luck going forward.
Good luck going forward. That's where I was looking towards. And congrats on the win here in this set specifically. But I think it's a very important thing is they just trust Leon. If he makes a call, says, we're going to do something, we want to do something, they're willing to put that trust in him because of how long he's been around the scene, for how long he's been playing this game. And we got to kind of see it get put on display here in game number 2. We saw it a little shaky in game number 1, but still, that veteran shot calling that he had was able to net his team a win. They get their first set, but now they've got to go up against Winter Dogs for their next one.
Man, I just want to know how Leon found a team that he could brainwash like that. I've never seen trust like that before in my life. This man legitimately said, "Whatever Leon wants, I just have to perform on it, and it's gonna work." You know what people would pay for that kind of ideology for their teammates? That is wild. That this team, as new as they are, have already established that kind of rapport. It just really does go to show that veteranship from Leon has garnered that respect from his team, and seeing the results that we're already having from this squad, considering how new they are, is just nothing short but of impressive.
We are only at the halfway point of our day. We still have 2 more sets to go. Let's take a look at the schedule, see what's up. It's in the Neighborhood versus Fun Havers, and then Duck Club and Just F6 will be our last sets of the day. And now with the win here for Nobody's Favorite, they will move on the top side of the winner's bracket. Reverse card, they're not out just yet, but they do move down into the loser's bracket. They're going to have a much longer trek to try and get their qualification towards the SPL, as you can see, provided by our lovely, amazing, and giant bracket here. But kind of going back to, picking up a team of rookies here, it's something that Elion talked about in his pregame interview. Found a team of rookies. They're all really strong. They all work really well together. We all trust each other. It kind of brings me back to kind of the airs of Payne Divion back in the old SPL days when he would bring up these rookie squads. He'd find them over in the minor league, the challenger circuit at that time, and then bring them up in. Now you got this SPL team. At one point was even able to take them all the way to World's Finals at one point. It's just so wild seeing all these kinds of, here's one player, he's been around forever, been around for so long in this scene, and they're able to find such strong talent seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah, there have been a couple players throughout the years who have kind of have the moniker of talent scout, right? I mean, great call out with Payne Diviande. For those of you who don't know, that is one of the OG SPL heads. If you were watching on Twitch, he was the guy who was always playing in his garage. You could just see people driving by in the background, and he was grinding Smite day in and day out. Raffer as well as a player that has been able to find just insane talent almost out of nowhere. Sun Touch comes to mind for that exact same style, and I think we can put Leon up there as well, man. He's every single year coming to try and play at a competitive level with almost just a completely new group of guys, and every single time has competed at that highest level.
And just as I said, though, this was only set number 2. We've got 2 more to go, but before we get there, we are going to take a brief break, so make sure to refill on your drinks, grab some snacks. We'll be back in just a few minutes.